Milk, who was the subcommittee chairman for the January 6th review, and our buddy Stephen A. Smith, just to stir things up a little bit. But before we get to them, this is the interim report of the failures and politicization of the January 6th Select Committee. I guarantee you I'm the only one that's read this entire report, other than the congressmen and the people who wrote it. I don't think there's a media personality out there or a host out there that took the time to read this report. If you read this report, which is online, you're going to be stunned and shocked. You may not think you will be, but you will be. It's incredible. This is a Stalinist committee. It is a rogue committee. It is a committee that obstructed, that destroyed, that witness tampered, that violated House rules. This is an unbelievable story of the Pelosi, Stalinist, Liz Cheney committee. And I want to just touch on some of this for you. So stay where you are. Listen to this. This is a big deal. First of all, Pelosi rejected all 5 Republicans who were suggested by then Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And she picked 2. 2 who hated Donald Trump. We know Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. They make Liz Cheney the vice chair. The vice chair is typically of the same party. But they made her the vice chair, and they said she represented the Republican Party. She was bipartisan. The committee was bipartisan. No, it wasn't. The Democrat doesn't get to pick all the members and then call it a bipartisan committee. They followed no rules. They didn't follow typical committee rules. In other words, she said, get Trump, and more than that, get Trump under the 14th Amendment, under the insurrection clause. We want to get him on insurrection January 6th. We want to prevent him from ever running for president of the United States again. That was the game plan. That was the game plan. And what you'll find out, and you'll hear some of these tidbits, that she didn't give a damn about security at the Capitol. She didn't lift a finger. As a matter of fact, neither did the Secretary of Defense, as best as I can tell. Where was the Secret Service? The same Secret Service of Butler? Were they in the Capitol protecting the Vice President? No, most of them were outside the Capitol. The Select Committee, as they write, unwritten purpose was to prevent President Trump from seeking re-election in 2024. It was no secret that after Speaker Pelosi failed to secure a conviction in the Senate for the second time with impeachment, the only way to guarantee that President Trump could not return to office would be if he was found to have, quote, engaged in an insurrection or rebellion against the Constitution of the United States in violation of the 14th Amendment. The idea was published in major newspapers within days of January 6th and spoken about frequently in left-wing circles. Speaker Pelosi knew that the best pathway to stop Trump from returning to the White House was if the Select Committee could craft a narrative compelling enough to convince the Department of Justice and the judicial system, along with the American public, that President Trump was an insurrectionist. That was the entire point. Do you know his name appears well over 1,000 times in the committee's report? Not this one, the Rogue Committee, over 1,000 times. As part of its investigation, the subcommittee learned that the Select Committee failed to archive or provide the subcommittee with any of its video recordings of witness interviews, any of them. As many as 900 interview summaries or transcripts, more than 1 terabyte of digital data. That's a lot. I said, what the hell's a terabyte? It sounds like a lot. It is a lot. It's equivalent to the text of 500,000 books, 500,000 books. That would be the biggest library on earth. That's what they destroyed. That's what they destroyed. Imagine the cover up here. It's massive. Concerningly, the committee writes, of the documents that were archived, the Select Committee delivered more than 100 encrypted, password-protected documents, never provided the passwords. It is unclear why the Select Committee chose only those documents to be shielded by password. So the Select Committee is the Stalinist, Pelosi, Cheney Committee. The subcommittee is the committee that has investigated the Select Committee. Despite playing a prominent role in its hearings, the Select Committee refused to archive any of the video recordings it collected of witness interviews or depositions as required by House rules. It's the most massive cover-up in American history. Without the full videos of these transcribed interviews and depositions, neither the subcommittee nor the American public are able to review and understand the full context of the video clips shown during the Select Committee's hearings. Remember,
Just like I said,
top-notch
it was all
producer from
fixed.
Hollywood. Oh, this was a slick situation. The hearings, the graphics, the videos. That's right, the cherry-picked witnesses, and of course, you needed to censor other information. You needed to destroy other information. You had to keep certain witnesses as far away from the hearing table as possible. That's what went on here. And so when this report comes out, the press all but ignores it. And as I said, I guarantee you nobody's read it but me. Representative Cheney's influence on the committee's work and the conclusions it drew cannot be overstated. She was the driving force. Her hate for Trump knew no bounds. Before the Select Committee published its final report, 15 current and former staffers approached the Washington Post to express deep frustration with Representative Cheney's heavy-handed oversight of the Select Committee's work. The article states that committee staff members were floored when told that the final report would focus almost entirely on Trump. Another staff member stated, when the Select Committee became a Cheney 2024 campaign, many of us became discouraged. The article continues. People familiar with the committee's work said Cheney has taken a far more hands-on role than Chairman Benny Thompson. And she said by multiple staffers to want the report to focus on Trump and has pushed for the hearings to focus extensively on his conduct and not what she views as other so-called sideshows. Now, the key witness they used, you might remember this, all the trauma. Cassidy Hutchinson. Who the hell is she? Oh, she's a big deal. And Lynn Cheney took her under her wing, so to speak. And they go on here about how Hutchinson gave sworn testimony, and her testimony changed over time, and her lawyer changed. At the behest of individuals, the report says, including the vice chair, Liz Cheney. Cheney covertly assisted Hutchinson and influenced her to fire her attorney. And then they smeared her attorney. Her attorney, who was willing to help her for free, she needed an attorney. And so the Trump people found her an attorney not to cover up because she needed an attorney. She could have picked anyone she wanted. Select Committee findings and evidence that disprove Cassidy Hutchinson's allegations. Remember the Hollywood guys and the media and the Democrats? All the stuff was prime time, either 8 p.m. Eastern or 10 p.m. Eastern. Oh, my God. Cassidy Hutchinson. Who? Oh, my God. It's unbelievable. Despite the Select Committee's exhaustive interviews of hundreds of witnesses, Cassidy Hutchinson was the only witness to testify to a series of specific outrageous claims about President Trump on January 6, 2021. The only one. Nearly all her allegations about incidents to which she was not an eyewitness. And the parties she credited for relaying those alleged events to her categorically denied her claims. Wow. Ultimately, Chairman Loudermilk and the subcommittee uncovered evidence available to the Select Committee, they write, disproving her 8 most sensational claims. Finding 1, President Trump did not attack his Secret Service detail at any time on January 6th. That was her testimony that he did. Finding 2, there was no pre-planned off-the-record move to the Capitol in the days leading up to January 6th. Period. Finding 3, there's no evidence that President Trump agreed with rioters chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." And they have details, they have photographs, they have references, footnotes. This is a thorough, complete report. Finding 4, Cassidy Hutchinson falsely claimed to have drafted a handwritten note for President Trump on January 6th, says their report. Finding 5, President Trump did not have intelligence indicating violence on the morning of January 6th. Finding 6, the report states, quote, Cassidy Hutchinson lied about the classification status of documents to disparage Mark Meadows, the then chief of staff. Finding 7, Representative Cheney and Cassidy Hutchinson attempted to disbar Stephen Passantino, her first lawyer. Finding 8, Cassidy Hutchinson misrepresented President Trump's actions at Lafayette Square Park in the summer of 2020. Now you know why the media is not reporting on this. And another finding, President Trump did not attack his Secret Service detail at any time. We've talked about that. The Select Committee did not give President Trump's Secret Service driver the opportunity to give his recollection of those events until November 22. He testified that he had not been contacted by the Select Committee in any way until that time. The driver testified that it never happened. So you have an allegation being made, so-and-so, the Secret Service driver, told me XYZ, or I overheard him speaking. Well, if you're a first-year law student, and you're a D student at that, the first thing you do is say, all right, who are we talking about? That Secret Service guy? Let's get him in here and get his testimony under oath. They didn't do that. Not till much later when it didn't matter. What else? The Select Committee proactively took measures to prevent the public and congressional Republicans from accessing a substantial amount of the material, as we pointed out, in contravention of House rules. This includes all video recordings of hundreds of interviews, transcripts of several key interviews, and several terabytes, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of the equivalent of books of data. In addition to deleting data, the Select Committee effectively concealed many vital interviews from subsequent congressional committees by giving custody, quote unquote, of those transcripts to the executive agencies, to the Biden regime, like the Department of Homeland Security. And instead of archiving those transcripts with the clerk of the House as mandated by the rules of the House, the Select Committee deleted its copies of those transcripts. It gives it to the Biden regime and destroys them, so the incoming Republican majority can't see them. You believe this? And because of this decision, it took the subcommittee several months to recover copies of those transcripts from the Department of Homeland Security. So now you have the majority in the House begging the Biden regime, can we have some of our documents back? And it was like pulling teeth, and they redacted a whole bunch of them, and they withheld a whole bunch of them. And when the documents were finally delivered, they were incomplete, and they contained significant redactions. The Select Committee's efforts to conceal those records from later congressional review led to predictable and unnecessary delays. They were sabotaged. They were sabotaged by the committee members, and the staff, and somebody needs to get to the bottom of that. The subcommittee, in long-standing negotiations with the White House and DHS, recovered 17 transcribed interview transcripts. 17. Wow. That the Select Committee failed to archive in clear violation of House rules. These transcripts included United States Secret Service agents and other White House employees. Many of these transcripts directly refute the narrative told by the Select Committee, yet they were never archived in the House. Additionally, the Select Committee did not conduct most of these interviews until November 2022, after Democrats lost their majority in Congress. Wow. Media concerned about this? No. It's like George Stephanopoulos is upset. He smears Donald Trump about rape. They give him a brand new contract. All the media circling the White House. Oh, look what we're doing to the First Amendment. First Amendment? You accuse people of the most horrific crime. That's not protected by the First Amendment. Now let's go to Nancy Pelosi. What role did she play? Uncovered HBO video footage in 2022. Home Box Office released a documentary film, Pelosi in the House, focused on the life and career of Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. This documentary film was directed and produced by her daughter, Alexandra. The documentary included footage of Speaker Pelosi and members of the House and Senate leadership after being evacuated from the Capitol complex on January 6, 2021. The Select Committee was in possession of Alexandra Pelosi's footage throughout their investigation. However, the Select Committee did not publicly release any of the video, and furthermore, did not archive this footage at the end of the 117th Congress, the Democrats, or hand it over when Republicans took majority in the House of Representatives in 2023. Despite attempts to conceal the footage, Chairman Loudermilk, who will be on this program in moments, secured various clips from HBO containing candid details regarding the events and individuals at the U.S. Capitol on January 6. On May 23, 2024, Loudermilk broke to HBO and they got the information. The footage, which the Select Committee chose to conceal from the public, conceal its release, contained shocking new information regarding Speaker Pelosi's movements and communication on January 6. In one clip, while being evacuated from the Capitol, Speaker Pelosi takes responsibility for the lack of security at the U.S. House. In a very panicked exchange, Speaker Pelosi admits to her chief of staff, Terry McCullough, that she bears responsibility for not having adequate security. No, it's not a question of how they don't know, they clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more, meaning the National Guard and security generally. And prior to January 6th, the U.S. Capitol Police Chief was required by law to receive approval from the Capitol Police Board before directly requesting assistance. from the D.C. National Guard. This requirement caused significant delays in the deployment of the National Guard and therefore delayed law enforcement's efforts to secure the Capitol. And there's an entire section on the Pentagon. That is shocking. What did the Pentagon know and when did it know it? Finding 1, the acting Secretary of Defense, Christopher Miller, dismissed President Trump, as the report says, January 3, 2021 order to use any and all military assets necessary to ensure safety for the planned demonstrations on January 6. That's where President Trump told his acting defense secretary, do we need National Guard? I'll call up National Guard. We got to make sure it's protected. Finding 1 by this committee says he ignored it. Finding 2, the Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, intentionally delayed, from the report, the D.C. National Guard response to the U.S. Capitol on January 6. Although approved by the Secretary of Defense at 3:04 p.m., Secretary McCarthy delayed and failed to communicate deployment orders to the commanding general of the D.C. National Guard. So they're sitting there for hours. Finding number 30, at 3:18 p.m. on January 6, Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, deliberately deceived, they write in the report, congressional leaders by stating the D.C. National Guard was physically moving to the Capitol. With full knowledge, these forces had yet to receive any orders. The false statements contributed to decisions made by congressional leaders regarding the security response to the Capitol. Finding 4 by the Loudermilk Committee. The Department of Defense Inspector General published a flawed report that contains fabricated information, ignores crucial information, fails to interview key individuals, and appears to have collaborated